Hello and welcome to another Full Court Press podcast, a college basketball experience.
LT in the
What?
house. What is
What
going
up?
on, Big Poppy? How are you?
Big. You know what? We're getting closer. What is it, like 8 weeks to the start of March Madness or some shit like that? No, it's till the end of the season. No, I don't. What is it? How much time we got left?
We have 5 weeks till Selection Sunday.
5 weeks. So you're putting pressure on me to get my shit together. Is pretty much what you're telling me.
Yeah, I mean, we're both picking games on a weekly basis. Do you want to provide the update to our
Nope, I'm good.
loyal listeners? Are
Oh,
you
I
sure?
got a win last night. So did you. So I'm not complaining.
Yeah, if anybody needs a confidence boost, challenge LT to a bracket this March. And yeah, as you watch a lot of college basketball games,
I
and
do, and that's
we
like,
talk to a lot of coaches. We have some insider information, and yet you're still 17 and 23 in 2024.
you know what? I am, as a former Division One head coach, as you know, I do not dwell on the past. I look for the future and the present. And right now, I'm 1-0 this week. Duke beat Wake Forest in
You're
a
only as good as
great
your
game.
last game, right?
Absolutely. I've heard that before. I can't get into bracketology. I mean, I respect all these guys that do it, that, for the love and stuff. I just can't, because it's just, there's so many freaking moving parts.
That's part of your job.
No, it's not. Bracketology is not part of my job. My job is to get guests, okay, interview guests, edit the podcast, and post them,
We're supposed
preferably
to
not
give
on Instagram.
we're supposed to give people what they want, and they want to know who's going to win games this week.
Okay, since you're the good one in this, why don't you pick it up and you do it?
You give me games to pick, and I'm doing pretty well.
Yeah, but you could tell the world how much better you are than me in picking games, at least.
Yeah, I'm 25 and 15, which I'm
Yeah,
actually
that's
I'm pretty proud of considering all the craziness that's happened in
yes.
college basketball.
Yes.
It's
Yes,
hard.
I'm happy I didn't pick the Kansas Texas Tech game as one of our 10 games, because
Man,
Kansas on the road is a different team than Kansas at home.
yeah. That was shocking what happened
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, I watched it.
I do want to give props to Texas Tech in that one though.
Yes.
First of all, Kansas should not have lost that bad, right? That is very concerning that they couldn't keep it close, right?
Mhm.
But shout out to Darian Williams from Texas Tech, man. 30
Yeah.
points, 12 from 12, had a perfect game. You don't see that,
No.
that's gonna be the only 30-point perfect game that the NCAA is gonna see all year.
You think
So
so?
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And Texas Tech, if I look at the rankings, where was Texas Tech? I thought Texas Tech was top. No, they're on they had 111 votes in the AP. They got 89 votes in the coaches poll. Do you like one poll over the other one? I feel like they're pretty close. No, they're not really that close. I mean, the
I
top
mean, I like the
five are
coaches poll
close.
better. I feel like the coaches poll is just a little bit more balanced, right?
Yeah, because I know why you like the coaches poll, because they have Colorado State at
Yeah.
25, and the
The
other one
coaches
has
the
them at
coaches got it right this past week with Colorado State. So
yeah, yeah. The Mountain West is just crazy. I mean, it's I'm telling you, these late games, the Mountain West and the West Coast. I watched San Francisco play Santa Clara, and dude, it was like a full out fight. Like they were it was like a dog fight. Like they were literally almost fist fights, a lot of pushing. It was aggressive, and the Dons came back, who we just had on last week on the podcast. So, um, yeah, I've kind of, this podcast has really opened my eyes to a lot of programs, not just the ones I enjoy. Like I watched the Syracuse Clemson game. Clemson played a great game at the Carrier Dome. I know it's no longer called the Carrier Dome, but to
yeah.
me, it'll always be the Carrier Dome. Um, and I look at kind of some of these different bracketologies, and it's a little bit concerning, because I look at some of these conferences like the Mountain West, um, Missouri Valley, Sun Belt, who we just had on this week. We had Dustin, who was Kearns, Dustin Kearns, Coach Kearns. and they're doing real well. James Madison's doing real well.
Mm.
How do you not let a team in that's like 26-7 to the tournament? I mean,
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I mean, having Coach Kearns on and like doing some, I mean, obviously, like I knew about Appalachian State. I picked them earlier in the season to beat James Madison. They beat them twice, right? And it's, they could honestly have a 27-28 win season and not get in when you look at the rest of their schedule.
how? That's ridiculous. And here's the problem. I
Like,
mean, what is every coach said the toughest thing it is scheduling, right?
yeah.
The big teams don't want to play them. And I thought about this in the smaller and the mid-major conferences. You don't want to have more conference games because here's the problem. Then you're just beating the shit out of each other.
No, for sure. And it's, I mean, I think that's what I mean, college with ever since the conference realignment started to just go whack-a-mole, like it's too hard just to say, oh, this is a one bid lead, two big lead, three bid league, right? Because there's so many moving parts now.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're the selection committee, how do you not look at the past couple years, see the mid-major programs who have made it to the Sweet 16, Elite Eight, represented 50% of the Final Four last year, and not want to get more of those teams in, right? I could get the whole thing of with some of these mid-major programs saying like, oh, you're a one big lead, you're one, like if like the Sweet 16 was always made up of 14 power teams, then you get two mid-majors, right? But that's just not how it's been the past couple of years.
Yeah, and I think the problem is too is that people have, some people have talked about expanding the tournament. But let's be honest, if the selection committee expands a tournament, it's going to be more major programs. The ACC is not going to get four teams. If they expanded by, let's say, 12 teams, I'm just going to throw out a weird number, 12, 75 to 80% of those are going to go to the Power Five, Power Six.
Yeah, I mean, if you're expanding the tournament, it's a media play. It's to get more TV rights, and yeah, you got to put more Power Five, Power Six programs in there,
Mm-hmm.
to get the media attention. But they haven't asked my opinion yet, so I'll
Well, if
reserve it.
they haven't asked yours, they definitely haven't asked mine. So I was reading something. I know I talked to you about this too yesterday or the day before. So supposedly the ACC, the SEC, and the Big Ten commissioners
Mhm.
are going to suggest ways to kind of curtail, change, maybe add some guidelines and rules to NIL and the transfer portal. And it's going to be interesting how the NCAA handles it. Because if you look at the SEC and the Big 12, I mean, those are, or Big 10, sorry, not the Big 10, the Big 10 and the SEC, those are the two power conferences. I mean,
Mhm.
the Big 12 is great, but I mean, and it's good and it's adding some key players in basketball, maybe not so much football. But if you look at those two, like some of the things they want to do with NIL is salary caps, approved agents. I like the salary cap idea. I think it makes it more of a leveling field. But then the transfer portal, you get one free transfer. What do you think about that? I mean, you're reverting back to what it used to be, but you don't have to sit out a year, which I think, you know, in other sports, you can transfer once and you don't have to sit out. It doesn't matter what level. If you go D1, D2, D2, D1. I mean, I went through it.
Yeah, I don't think that there's a right answer. I think there's going to be a better answer, right? And what that is, it's going to take a couple of years of just everybody just needs to accept that what's happening right now isn't what's going to be going on in 4 years, right?
You better hope not, because you're going to lose a lot of coaches.
All right, you're going to lose a lot of legacy coaches, right?
Yeah.
Who had a system in place for 20 to 40 years, depending on
Mhm.
who are just fed up with all the changes.
Yeah.
As far as the transfer thing, I actually don't mind players being able to transfer. I do. I don't know what the solution is though.
Yeah, but
It's
you think it's okay a player can transfer four times in 4 years? I mean, that's ridiculous. I'm sorry.
yeah,
That's not a team game anymore. This is becoming what's good for me.
Yeah, I mean, if you're continuing to improve year after year, you should be able to pick a program that best fits your future career.
Yeah, but that's called the NBA or Europe. That's not called college.
Yeah, so I mean, what do you say if there's a med student who creates this incredible thing in college and, you
A
know,
med student ain't transferring. I'm sorry.
so you're saying a med student who is at, some like Iowa State who creates something incredible and then gets a call from Harvard Med School to say like, oh, like come here.
That's a
Like,
bad analogy. That never would happen. We're
why
talking
not?
about med school. And also, too, med school aren't getting, you're paying to go to med school. You don't get it usually a scholarship. So
But
I am going to disagree with you on that one. I think you should have one free transfer.
mhm.
Okay. That way, there's less of this crap. Like I can remember which coach told us that, literally there's recruiting going on in handshake lines. I mean,
Yeah.
we got to cut this crap out. It's called college sports. It's not if it's the NCAA, then it's collegiate. If it's the NAA, the National Athletic Association, like the NBA, then have at it. But it's college. They're supposed to go to school. I mean, you're a student athlete. I mean,
But they're also making the programs millions of dollars
and
off.
but I have no problem them getting paid. I've never said that. NIL is fine. Okay.
Mhm.
NIL was put into place to get people compensated, but now it's gone the wild, wild west. Now it's the bag man. Now it's allowing illegal recruiting going on. It's no longer businesses. It's the universities providing bags, or in Tennessee's case, McDonald's bags, for football. But yeah, I mean, I have no problem with the transfer portal. Just you can't. I mean, can you imagine you're married and you just change wives every year? That's a better analogy than a med school student. Think about that. How's that fair to your wife?
First of all, when you're getting married, you're making a lifetime commitment. In
Yeah,
college,
but
it's
in college,
here's
yeah,
the
but
thing. These are 17 and 18-year-olds making maybe the first big
19,
decision,
20, 21,
and then they get it
22.
exactly. Like, I mean, more than anybody. I mean, there's a level of maturity and comfort when you're 26, 27 compared to when you're 20, 21, 22.
I don't know. Not according to the App State assistant coach who acts like a 15-year-old, according to Trevon Spillers.
That's pretty
No,
funny.
I listen. I know what you're saying.
I don't, my point is I don't have the right answer, but I think it will improve year after year. But just saying like, oh, these are the set guidelines for the next 10 years, I think that's a mistake. I do think that they need to play with a couple different things. I mean, and you don't find loopholes in new regulations until you initiate them,
Right,
and then you start
right.
finding loopholes, right? So it's a different world right now for the NCAA, especially college basketball and football, where, players are trying to play to get to the next level. They are trying to play to make money. I mean, you look at what's
A
happened.
percentage are, yeah, percentage are, but a percentage are trying to get
That
money now. I mean,
that
which I
that
don't
that's
blame
who
them.
that's who we're talking about though.
Right.
It's, you're not going to be able to make 500 grand a year in the G League. Like when you look at
Yeah.
like Armando
Fake
Bancroft
hunt.
from Bangkok at UNC. Like, I mean, they basically came out and said like he's making more money this year than he would if he would have gone to the draft last year.
And I have no problem with that. And he's stuck with North Carolina. I have no problem players getting what they deserve. No problem with that. Okay. No problem. The thing is what I don't like from a team aspect, because it's a basketball team and it's
Sure,
a program. Okay. And coaches recruit. You can't re-recruit your team every year. You don't even do that in the pros because they're under contracts, you know?
for sure. And so, why is it okay that coaches can leave when they want and they can break contracts?
Yeah, but name me how many coaches left last year for a different job that didn't get fired, that left. Ed Cooley is one. Give me another one.
I mean, I don't have the stats in front of me, but it's like, yeah, I mean, it's for sure. But it's like you have to put guidelines around both the players and the coaching staffs, right? Like if you're gonna do it.
Yeah, yes, but that's why they have contracts and they have buyouts, and you can do the same thing with players.
Sure.
But my thing is, you can't just transfer every year, because here's the thing: as a brand, I mean,
Mhm.
that's why you remember Dockich. I think it was Dockich or Godfrey. I think it was Dockich that said about like branding. You don't know who's on the team every year because you're just going to transfer. And I mean, that way it'll protect the mid majors because my worry was, and it's kind of, I don't know if it's done it fully, is like these teams would get good, like an Akron or an App State, or for instance, like Louisiana, they lost a kid to I think Oregon. There's other kids that have gone from some of our that have done well, and now they got up. They're like, oh well, they're hoping this kid's coming back, but he's not going to come back.
Yeah.
And the problem is a lot of these programs can't do NIL. I mean, look at Vermont, how good they are. They just
Mhm.
can't physically. It sounds like they
But I think
can't
that's what's
financially do it.
what it's going to come down to is every program in the US right now is trying to figure out what their NIL protocol is going to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's and you've sat in those budget meetings and athletic departments and stuff like that where it's like there is going to be a budget meeting every year.
Yeah. Yeah.
And where my biggest issue is if I wanted to sponsor a student athlete at my alma mater or donate to a program that's then going to be put in the NIL bucket,
Right.
I have no confidence that that kid's going to come back next year as
Yep.
a booster or alumni or something like that. That's
But
my
if
biggest problem that
but
they
if
can.
you have but if they're under contract, okay, because if you're going to start paying people, you should
Yep,
have contracts legally. I mean, you should have contracts, right? I mean,
they do have
tech.
contracts.
What's that
They do have every student athlete has a contract with the university.
for the scholarship?
Yeah, but I'm sure, I guarantee you that there's contracts for NIL and stuff
I
like
don't.
that.
It doesn't
Oh,
sound like
there
it
is.
because I mean, you look at Quinn Ewers, for instance, came to Ohio State for $1 million. He
Hmm.
left and he went to Texas for money.
Hmm.
I don't think there's contracts. We need to,
No,
hey,
they're,
you know what?
they're,
I'm not going to research. You research that.
I
I've
will.
got it.
I guarantee you there's contracts, but I guarantee there's loopholes in the contracts. Do you know what one of the biggest things that caught my eye recently when I was looking up some of the NIL stuff in college basketball?
A photo of me with a wine bottle going like this.
Um,
What was it?
who won National Player of the Year last year?
A Canadian.
Yep. How much money is he making in NIL this year?
Shit, you told me this. Is that Canadian or American money?
He's making $0
Yeah, because you know what?
because his F1 visa does not allow him to make NIL money.
Exactly. So foreigners cannot, including myself, though I'm now American citizen, I'm dual. You do not get a penny, and that's the crazy thing
So do you know what Purdue did? They scheduled a game this year
in
in
Canada. Yep,
Toronto,
yep,
and
against Alabama.
he was able to cash in when they
How,
were in Canada.
how much you get?
I don't know. I don't think it was public, but it was, I'm sure it was a sizable amount, but it wasn't as
Canadian,
much. Yeah,
not as
sure.
much.
Correct. So it's like there's so many different loopholes that you can find in the system right now. But, I give the NCAA credit for trying to be progressive enough to accommodate what's needed and then try
Yeah.
to take a step back each year to say,
But no,
hey,
no, no. But you can't, as a governing body, you can't just throw it out there and not do anything. And I feel like
no,
they're not
but they
doing it.
are going to do something about it.
Are
They're
are,
making
but
changes every year. I
okay,
promise you they will be making changes every year for the next 10 years for both the
okay.
transfer portal and
We've
NIL.
got this on. We got this in perpetuity. What is called greenery, green. It's green. It's
Sure,
green.
sure.
It's going to stay forever. Whatever the hell it's called.
Yeah.
No,
So,
listen. I
yeah,
don't.
I mean,
I there's got to be a balance, and that's the thing. Like they got to do something because I've been in all these meetings. I've had to pass the recruiting shit, open book though I might add. I never failed. I know one college coach that failed. Can't say his name. I don't think he's coaching collegiate anymore. But he was a division assistant and a head coach actually too for somebody, but I'm not gonna say who. But I just from a being in that chair as a coach, I would hate to see every year I had to re-recruit you or some of your teammates. Now, if you look at the cultural aspect of it, you look at Appalachian State we just had. How many transfers has he had?
I mean, he's the anomaly right now. He's only getting one or two a year.
I know, but look at Coach Becker from Vermont.
Yep.
But what I'm seeing is they're not transferring out of the
Hmm.
program.
Because they're
So
setting their, and those are two really good examples. You have somebody like Coach Becker, who is at Vermont, who's like, we're not doing NIL. If you want
mhm,
NIL, don't pick up my phone call when I'm recruiting you.
yeah, I want
You
an
know,
NIL.
don't expect that. So it's like when you set those boundaries, right,
Hmm.
from the initial recruiting process, scouting process, whatever you want to call it, you know what you're going to get. But when you
Yeah.
are trying to compete with other people saying like, yeah, like, if you need the $150,000 to come play for us, we're going to get that for you.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden you're putting up 17, 18 points a game, and the school that can pay you 400 grand a year calls you. You're going to take, like, that's a huge difference.
Yeah, and I get it because I understand. I had teammates that came from different economics and backgrounds. I totally
Sure.
get it, and I'm never going to deny someone to get what they deserve. Okay, but but the thing is, like, we can't. It's just going to come up like a bidding war. Like, who's bigger than the next? And I mean that's
But what
and the
different, sure, but
but
what difference is that than saying, oh, I'm going to put, and we've talked about this with different programs around the
right.
country. When they're doing annual fundraising campaigns, like, should they take that money and build, because the recruiting used to be like, oh, check out our new badass locker rooms.
Are you talking about DePaul right now?
That's it, one example, right?
Yes.
Check out, but it's like you go to like football programs and it's like,
Yep.
hey, check out our new fitness room, check out our
Hmm.
cafeteria that's
Yep.
100% dedicated to the
Yep.
football team.
Yep.
Right. Like, are you putting money into those programs? Like, to me, there's no difference than saying like who's bigger and who's better as far as like putting
Right.
money into a program, no matter where you spend it. Right. And I think the whole NIL protocol and like the lawsuits that happened leading up to NIL with Ed O'Bannon and things like that
Yep.
were all based on like where's the player's piece of pie? Like,
Right.
why are you allowed to sell my jersey at your stadium
Yep.
when I'm the one putting the time in? I get
Yep.
that I'm getting a free education and stuff like that, but and I get that I'm helping putting people in the stands, but when you're making an extra $5 million off of my name this year,
Yep.
like where is that balance?
You know what I'm laughing at? I always love the thing when people said, "Who goes to more to watch, the basketball game or the debate event?"
Yeah.
Because they would say that, and I'm like, there just has to be some curbing of how many times you can transfer. That's all I have to say, because then it's just pretty much like, all right, how much you getting at App State? 25,000. All right, we'll give you 40,000.
Yeah.
For another player. Listen, I'm not denying that players should not get theirs. I just think there has to be some structure. And I think they made it very gray, which a lot of agencies and as you work in what the field you industry and the industry I work in, you deal with a lot of government regulations and there's a lot of gray area. And I think there's not even like a lane for this whole transfer right now. It's just like a wide open with no lanes or no stoplights. It's just the Autobahn on steroids. How you like that analogy?
No, I mean, I think it's great, but yeah, I mean, I think the point is, we're going to see a lot of changes, right? We're going to see a lot of really good legacy coaches start to leave the industry.
Like
You know,
who?
we've already seen some of it.
Yeah,
You know,
Jay Wright. Yep.
Jay Wright, Boeheim.
Yep.
It's so you don't know what's going to happen next. I mean, you look at what's happening with Kentucky this year, and Coach Calipari didn't change his recipe. He recruited the best high school players in the world, you know, and now they're sitting on, three home losses in a row. And is he able to, is he going to
Yep.
have the same
You got to
success?
adapt. Every coach says you have to adapt. I mean, Coach G said that from USF,
You
and I
have to
get
embrace it.
and
So,
I get that. And there's some really older teams like Memphis who
mhm,
disappointment. I hate to say because we both love Coach Penny and the Tigers.
mhm.
They need Lorenzen Wright back. Remember Lorenzen Wright? I love
Yeah,
him.
for sure.
Or Bimbo Coles with the glasses.
Yeah.
I love Bimbo Coles. But I guess what I'm saying is like, Kentucky fans are pissed. They're ready to like burn down Lexington. And I get it, but that's how they built the program. I mean, that's what Coach Cal is known as. He is probably one of the, if not best,
Sure.
high school coach best high school recruiting coach, recruiting the next high school phenom to his program. And they drank the juice, and now they want to drink something else. And I think the thing is, there's nobody, like, their team is so young, and then you're playing against these teams, might be a mid-major, that the average age is 21 because of the COVID graduate year. And
Yeah.
these five, I mean, there's guys 24 years old playing college basketball.
Yeah. So do you know the last time Kentucky had 3 straight home losses?
Never.
No, they have. Never in Rupp Arena, but
1947.
1966.
I'm only off by 19 years.
Pat Riley was a senior that year. So
Seriously?
yeah, so they have a game coming up. The last time so they're going to be fighting for their lives, obviously. The last time they had 4 straight home losses, 1927.
That was my next guess.
like I mean, how wild is that?
And back in 1927, they only played like 11 games.
I know, right? So, but I think Kentucky and Coach Cal, I have so much respect for Coach Cal, like what he's been able to do, and but the game's changing, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
like having 7 McDonald's All-Americans on a team of 12 or 13 people, it's hard to put a team together, that's going to compete with such a veteran junior, senior teams out there who have the experience, have the more physicality, things like that. But so it's going to be pretty crazy.
Yeah. Do you see Coach Cal changing his ways?
Yeah. I mean, he's getting paid enough money to try it, and I think it's something. I think what Coach Cal has going for him is, he has put more NBA players. He's put more college players on an NBA team than any other college coach right now. So if you're somebody from a mid-major or even a Power 6 program that's had a really strong junior year and says, like, you know what, I'm really playing to get in the draft next year. Like, I think Coach Cal could easily put a presentation together and say, like, no one's done better at that than me. Right. So, I mean, it's definitely a different mentality than he's had throughout his coaching career, because I think he is the best AAU McDonald's All-American high school coach that we've seen the past 2 decades. And, I put Bill Self up there too, but it's, I mean, Coach Cal needs to get 2 or 3 solid transfers each year to be able to compete with what's going on out there. So it's it's crazy. And but as I've said the last couple podcasts, the competitiveness of this year's college basketball atmosphere is due to the transfer portal. I 100% believe that.
You think so?
Yeah.
That's a good take.
So it is, it's harder to coach against teams that have a different team each year almost.
Yep.
Which makes it more competitive. So
and it's funny because
I agree with it. I don't. I mean, I'm going to push more on your side. That I do think that there need to be a little bit better regulations around how many times you can transfer. But yeah, and I mean, I think that a happy median somewhere in there is fine. Like, it's, I personally liked the rule you had to sit out a year if you're going to transfer. Maybe the median is like, hey, you can keep transferring, but you have to sit out the first 10 games of the season.
No, I think if you transfer more than once, you have to sit out. How about do that? You get 1 free transfer, and then the second time you have to sit out a year. The third time you have to sit out 2 years, and the fourth time you have to sit out 3 years.
I mean, you're going to get some like 30-year-olds playing.
The Robert Kotrosko of Romanian basketball.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's like, I'm excited, in all honesty. Like, I'm excited to see where these rules go. I think there's never been a better time for the NCAA as a committee to keep improving year after year, knowing that they have this flexibility now. And the answer is not going to be done this year. It's not going to be next year. It's going to take several years to get it right.
And part of the reason why I think they did this and didn't do much initially was, because of the popularity of the G League, of the
Sure.
overtime league. You're making a little bit of money now.
Mhm.
Now you might be making $200,000 a year and you sign a couple year contract. I don't even know how the contracts works, but now I'm going to Alabama and I blow it up or wherever, and I'm making $500,000. Nothing wrong with that. He'll probably stay in college longer. So
That's all I was
that
going to say. I
really
mean,
helps the game.
as a college basketball fan, you want to see the best players sticking around.
Right.
You
But
know,
you
I
want the best players sticking around to the team you cheer. That's the thing.
Yeah. And that's going to be on the culture and the atmosphere that the coaches and the athletic departments, put out there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's, it's,
It is what it is.
do you know who is reportedly making the most in NIL this year? College
Uh,
basketball?
no, I don't know, actually. That's a good one.
Bronny James. I mean, obviously, because he's got the following that he
And,
has.
and they're
Based,
doing really well at USC.
yeah. I mean, reports are that he's making over $5 million this year on NIL.
I mean, he's not even averaging double digits, I don't think.
No. But that's what that's what it comes down to is, you're getting players who have good followings on social media, who can
Yeah.
represent your brands and things. I
Yeah.
mean, he's got deals with like Beats by Dre, with Nike, like, the same deals that his dad has, and now it's been passed down to him because he does have a strong following, so it's also, so I think we're going to see a lot of that as well, where we're already seeing it, but we're
Yeah.
going to see more of it where your NIL worth isn't going to be the numbers you're putting up and how good your team is. It's going to be how good of a content creator you are. Like, what's your social media?
So this could work with us for like sponsorships and advertising for the Full Court Press
Absolutely.
podcast. How
Yeah.
many downloads do you have? 14 and a half, but I'm worth 36.
Yeah. I mean, you're like it. Yeah. I mean, the NCAA and these athletes, I mean, they're going to get their marketing degrees in year one, like just based on
Yeah.
like what's going on with all this stuff. So it's going to be fun to follow and see where it goes,
Yeah. Absolutely.
all it's going to take is like one viral high school play, to potentially
Hmm.
get you a better offer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's also, I don't know, like since NIL, you don't see as many players making bad decisions. I'm going to say that out loud. Like
Really?
from college football to basketball, now players have something to protect, right? Which is their money. So you're not seeing them make bad decisions with nightlife and other things that have gotten them in trouble in the past. I'm sure you
Hmm.
have some, but you're not seeing as many as years past,
Yeah. Yeah. It's you know what? It's going to be interesting, and it'll be curious to see what happens in the off season with coaching movement, player movement. We've already seen two people transfer from Memphis. What was that, a couple weeks ago? It'll be curious to see what happens that day after conference. I think that's the conference finals, day after selection committee. Be serious who moves. It'll be curious to see if anybody enters the transfer portal while they're still in the NCAA tournament.
Yep.
Because I mean that's happened in football, a handful of times. So yeah, I think that's pretty good, Sammy. I think people need to subscribe, rate, and review. Smash the subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube,
I
or
want
as
to
I
give a
call it,
shout out
YouTube.
to one team we've had on the pod.
What's that?
I want to give a shout out to one team we've had on the pod,
Who's that?
ranked for the first time since Larry Bird,
Yes.
their school. Shout out
Yes.
to the Indiana State Sycamores. We've got a lot. We have a really strong following in Indiana State and the Sycamores, and I want to
Yes.
give them their props. It was a blast to have them on the podcast a month or
Give us
two
the
ago.
stat that you told me.
What was the stat?
The stat you told me that right after they were on the podcast aired, they went 11-1.
Yeah, they're 11-1 since they joined LT and me on the Full Court Press podcast. And so that tells you guys, get on the pod, let's do this.
Yeah.
And yeah, but shout out to those guys. I mean, they've had
Yep.
an incredible year,
Shirtsy.
but
Yep.
what they've done the past 4 or 5 weeks is just phenomenal. And it's the first time the program's been ranked since the Larry Bird era.
Dude, I'm gonna make some shirtsy chili. We should get t-shirts. I know John Rothstein does it. We should get t-shirts like Shirts loves chili, or Shirts is chili.
That's funny.
Indiana's finest. So,
That's
but
that's an inside joke for our new listeners here.
yeah,
Coach Shirts gave us
yeah.
really
Listen
good.
to the Indiana State podcast.
Yeah, listen to the podcast and learn about one of Coach Shirts's most awkward recruiting stories.
Yes,
Good
yes.
time.
So,
LT,
all right,
always a pleasure, brother.
always a pleasure, man. Next time on the Full Court Press podcast.